Thanks for joining our monthly community webcast. I'm Jürgen Kress, part of the Oracle Product Management team to support you as a partner. In case you missed one of our webcasts, on-demand recordings are available. For details, please see our monthly community newsletter and subscribe to the Oracle Video Hub partner channel. In today's presentation, Grant Ronald will introduce the Oracle Digital Assistant Center of Excellence. Good afternoon, Grant.
Hi there, Jürgen.
And Martin Jarvis from our team will support us. Hi, Martin.
Hey, Jürgen. Thanks for having me.
Objective of today's webcast is to support you to build better bots. 6 of the top 10 ODA projects have been implemented by partners. Thanks for the excellent work. System integrators like you are key to the Oracle Cloud Platform success. The Center of Excellence summarized lessons learned from many ODA projects. What is Oracle Digital Assistant? ODA is a chatbot platform. Customized bots can be deployed by you as a partner, or pre-built SaaS skills and templates, for example, for HCM or Oracle Service, can be leveraged and extended by you as a partner. Brief housekeeping. Please feel free to post your questions via the conference questions and answers tool or Twitter #PassCommunity. At the end of the webcast, we have plenty of time to answer all of your questions. Slides are available via the community website. So we will start the community webcast with a short update and the latest announcements. Then I will hand over to Grant Ronald to give you insights in the new Center of Excellence and how we can help you to build awesome bots. We will wrap up the call and answer your questions. So let's get started. To get started with Oracle Digital Assistant, we as a team launched a new on-demand training, including an assessment and a certification. We would like to encourage all of you, if you're architects, developers, to take part of it and become a certified expert. Please take the Oracle Digital Assistant Platform Solution Engineer Specialist. The training is essential for developers, consultants, solution engineers, and architects to get trained before you start your first project or get trained and certified if you're already working on the platform. The training is available at go/oracle/AI/ODA certification. It includes design and conversational building blocks for ODA, model training and AI, understand the role of a digital assistant, building multi-lingual digital assistants, and the assistant. So make sure you take the training and realize the benefits to deliver successful project, boost your career, and use AI and become a standard UI platform. Why should you take the exam and participate in the training? Here are 5 experts from our community who give you some insights why they took already the exam. Like Ryan Patrick, the founder and CEO, who is working on many HCM bots. He would like to encourage you strongly, all teams that are embarking on their first ODA implementation, to take this training. Or Scott Wall from Fishbowl Solutions, who is an expert also on our platform. It is important for me to invest in my training to ensure I have the latest knowledge and innovation to leverage on our customer projects. Roger Jackson from Down Under in Australia. The certification helps to reinforce what I have learned to date and the confidence that my team and I can deliver successful assistant projects. Jack Patterson is an expert who delivers Oracle service projects and innovates them with Oracle Digital Assistant at Box Fusion. He quotes, certifications help us to validate that we have the most accurate and up-to-date knowledge and demonstrate that we can take full advantage of cutting-edge features with Digital Assistant. And Ruben Rodriguez, an ACE director from Avantic in Spain. As a certified Oracle expert, our customers are ensured that we deliver successful quality projects on time. So make sure that you take the exam and become a certified expert. Martin, we published the latest newsletter. What's part of the Oracle Digital Assistant newsletter?
Yeah, that's right. So the newsletter went out for this month, and the reason we're doing it every 2 months now is to coincide with the release of Oracle Digital Assistant. So we've just released 2110, and all the documentation has been updated for 2110. So the newsletter will give you the highlights and will bring you to where you can read more about what's in 2110. It'll be rolled out to instances later this month. We've also focused on the normal sort of customer success stories. You'll find a nice story from Intrasy, one of our partners, who has built a bot for one of the Chicago University called Louis. So there's a story about that. And there's also a feature based on that training you just heard Jürgen talking about. And we're celebrating the first 4 people to have completed the assessment, become certified with that training. So they have their pictures and a thank you. And we'll continue to do that. So, you know, the next group of people who complete that assessment, there's the challenge for you. You'll get your photo and a little quote in our newsletter every time it releases now, if you want to do that. Thanks, Jürgen.
Thank you, Martin. So make sure you read the newsletter. It's available, and contribute if you have best practices to share. If you would like to promote your events or success stories, please send them to Martin Chavez or myself. We have a hands-on training coming up in Spanish for the South American market in November 9th, 11th, 16th, and 18th. It's a 4-day introduction hands-on training. On the first day, we give you an overview. On day 2 and day 3, Ruben Rodriguez will teach you hands-on Oracle Digital Assistant based on the Karakoda training platform, and on day 4, we do Spanish. The training will be live and it will be in Spanish. So if you would like to attend, please register. And we also continue to have available the same training as an on-demand training in English. In case you missed our last community webcast with David Bain talking about Louis, the Oracle Digital Assistant for PeopleSoft, it's available on demand and you can watch it at our community Oracle YouTube channel. For more information and for all the links, please visit our community website. There you find all the information, including the latest newsletter, the trainings, the webcasts, the monthly YouTube updates, the Slack channel. We encourage you to join the Slack channel to ask your questions and to collaborate, documentation, and much more links. Also, the training and the certification are available at our community website. It's pretty new. Please visit it at bit.ly/ODA partner page. So some quick updates on the integration side. We continue to offer the 3-day hands-on training for SaaS consultants to connect Oracle SaaS solutions like HCM, ERP, and CX. We will run a training October 5th, 7th, and 12th for the US time zone. And we run a training November 2nd, 4th, and 9th for the Asian Pacific time zone and or for the EMEA time zone. For registration, please see the community newsletter or the community website. We also updated the new integration partner community website with the same information like the developer website. You find here all the information for integration and process automation. In case you're not yet a member in our partner community, please make sure that you register. For the integration community and the developer community with all the digital assistant content, then you receive our monthly newsletter, you get invited to our monthly webcasts and to the Slack channel. With this, I would like to hand over to Grant Ronald. Grant, over to you.
Hi, thanks, Jürgen. Okay, so what I wanted to do is, as many of you may know, I look after a team who build a lot of our, or all of our technical enablement materials. That includes our doc, our certification, and all the tech articles that you see written in. We work on a number of high-profile engagements with many of you partners and customers as well. Now, what we've recognized is that over the years, people have learned that the building blocks of Oracle Digital Assistant, you know, what are entities, what are intents, utterances, and they can build a bot and demonstrate bots working, you know, pretty well. However, what we're recognizing is that, you know, the bar needs to be set higher in terms of the digital assistant experience for customers, and also how we implement that to be more robust, because we can all demonstrate a bot that works, but once it gets into the hand of a real user who do things you don't expect, that's when the experience starts to fall apart quite quickly. So what we're trying to do is bring together from our experience of working with many customer engagements, partner engagements, internal projects, and some of our own bots we're building, which I'll touch on in a minute, is we've tried to bring together all these best practices and design blueprints to share with you. So what I wanted to do was just take 15, 20 minutes or so to talk through some of the things that were created. The first thing is the Design Camp Best Practices series. Now I'm just going to switch to browser here just so you can see this. So if I go to bit.ly.odadoc, and everything we have kind of sits off this URL, but you'll see these Design Camp videos. Now, these are super important because these are actually internal webinars that we host every second Wednesday to our internal development teams who are building the digital assistant. We've decided that because they're incredibly valuable, we are going to release, or we have released, all of those videos. And so every second Wednesday, a new video will be created and released to you. Now, they're about 45 minutes long. The only thing that we redact or remove is the Q&A session that we have at the end, but the whole presentation, the demos and the works and all are there for you to consume. Now, what's kind of nice is that this Design Camp closely mirrors the development process they're probably all used to, and also the certification exam that Jürgen introduced as well. So it really kind of dovetails in, and there are common areas of focus that we ask people to look at. The very first thing is, and this is probably one of the most obvious things you think people should understand, but it's also the most fundamental thing that people mess up, is have you got the right design and use case for a digital assistant? So we have 3 sessions already which talk about things like what is a conversation design workshop? That's our conversation design experience, CDX. You can see here, we've got an overview in what conversational UX means, good practices, bad practices, things to avoid. And this one, we had a specialist company called the Conversation Design Institute to have their own certification on what is conversation design and how you design a human-centric workflow and conversations. So it gets into all the important things about design personality of robot, conversation, turn taking, things like the words you use and the discourse markers which help link conversations and help guide users. So in terms of making your bot sound warm and effective and not, invalid order ID, very formal and web-like, then these are the sessions for you. The next thing we'll look at is kind of, one of the core fundamental things that a bot has to do is understand the use of the natural language processing. So we have a number of sessions which cover training the models as well. These are 2 sessions we've done. The first is an overview and best practices in training the model, and this one dives deeper into best practices for utterance development. Now, I'm going to talk in 5 or 10 minutes about our Center of Excellence reviewing skills for partners and customers. One thing that we've noticed in reviewing 30, 40 different digital assistant implementations is there's pretty much the same mistakes that are being made. And we see, for example, the training utterances, very poor quality training utterances, not enough training utterances, too formulaic, too much redundancy in there. These are really important elements that will bog down your NLP if you don't get these right. So we cover those as well. We cover, topics like how to build an FAQ bot, testing strategies. Lo and behold, yes, people should be testing their digital assistant, and it's critical because I think maybe more than a web app, you are revising and updating, and the change you make to things like your NLP model have can have ramifications in terms of how other intents, even if you've changed one intent, it can impact other intents. So we talk about testing strategies and ways to test bots as well. Obviously, the conversation is a really important element. So we talk here about sessions on how to build conversation flows. Some of our new features like ML entities, machine learning entities, which are a big area which I can see people starting to use a lot of. And also another new feature that came in about 6 months ago, entity event handlers, which allows us to add JavaScript code at the point you are resolving entities. So that means that when you're resolving entities, you can have JavaScript validation, you can call backend services, you can do a whole bunch of things that you couldn't do with resolve entities. And that becomes super important because resolving entities is actually, can be pretty complex when you have clashes in entities and you need to disambiguate with the user as well. So we get into all these conversations. Backend integration, anyone who's run a bot that calls a custom component in the built-in container will know that it takes about 30 to 40 seconds to warm up that functions container. Now, the built-in container for custom components in ODA is fabulous. It's really great to have that you can deploy it as part of the ODA service. However, the real production bots probably wouldn't use that. And we have 5 or 6 sessions here on best practices for backend integration, including enterprise class deployment using things like Kubernetes as well, and how you manage and control that. And then more advanced topics, but again, it's super important. I've seen code where people hard code username and passwords in the API calls. That's pretty scary stuff. So we talk about how you can use features of OCI, and also not only for backend integration, but other features of OCI like sentiment analysis and these other kind of analytic functions to bring those in. Other quick rundown. I just want to go through there. I know you can read these yourself, but I want to explain that the importance channels, how to deploy your channel or your bot out to a channel, but also things like adaptive bot design. Do you change your messaging based on if you're on an SMS channel versus a rich web channel or a voice channel as well, these kind of things as well. I would love to know, maybe in the chat or the comments, you could say how many people are building native multi-language bots, something that probably over the past 3 or 4 years, certainly being in EMEA, we were getting huge number of requests saying, hey, can you support in Spanish and German and French natively? And now we have native multilingual. Now, multilingual brings its own challenges. It's not just a case of training your pizza bot with German phrases. There are other challenges because things like entity values have got to be translated potentially, although not all entity values, because it depends, things like if I order a coffee at Starbucks, I'd offer a grande as a large, or venti as a whatever size that is, 20 ounce, I think it is. And those are all the Italian words are words we'd maybe keep even if you're running the bot in German, for example. So there's real challenges around building multi-language skills. So we talk about these type of things here as well. And then we cover all the basic stuff as well. So if you are embarking on an ODA project and you're onboarding any of your team, I would really encourage you to set aside a couple of hours each week over a couple of months to ensure that people digest these videos. And they can always go back to them, but 45 minutes, the kind of thing you can do, grab a coffee and listen into that session, these sessions. So that's the first thing, the design camp sessions. The next thing is, and again, I'm leading up towards our Center of Excellence where we do a review of digital assistants for you. But one of the questions we talk to teams is, we review a digital assistant, we tell them all the things they've got wrong, and they say, well, how would we have known that? And that's a fair question. Now, best practices, I can teach you a certain amount of stuff, but of course, sometimes it's only through experience, by doing and learning yourself, that you learn these things. However, what we've tried to do is bring in all of our best practices in one place in the doc. So now if you go to the doc, you'll see a new book on the left-hand side, Digital Assistant Development Blueprints. And as you can see here, we've got 16 different chapters in that one book. Now, again, we try to keep this is, here we are, it's 11 different chapters here, or 9 different chapters. We try to keep this as succinct as possible, but there's a lot of information to cover. But it is about 50 pages. So again, it's maybe a couple of hours to digest. But for a reference point, if you're starting a project, here's some of the things you'd be thinking about. Training the model, creating intents, the scope of intent. And something that we've done at the end of every chapter is a checklist, so that you can go through having completed and said, okay, Am I using Trainer TM for my production system? I probably should. Has my confidence threshold been set to at least 0.7? Again, we see some bots going out with the 0.5 threshold, which is pretty, random in terms of whether it will resolve at all, to be honest with you. Are you creating an 80-20 split for your training data? So all your utterances that you've gathered, we always recommend 80% to train the model, 20% to test the model. Are you doing that? Again, we'll often get bots and see no sort of kind of training as well. So we cover topics again here from the basics in terms of starting the project. Have you got the right skills in the project? How to train the model. If you're supporting multiple language, testing, conversation design, channel specifics. And again, it closely mirrors some of these, the structure of the videos we've got, custom component backend, digital assistants and testing as well. So again, if you're building your NLP model, for example, I would go to this chapter, again, grab another cup of coffee, read through it, even things like, we've even gone to the point of naming conventions. And again, this is something that's been born out of having to review other people's skills as well. You recognize that, hey, if you've got a particular naming convention, for example, a category dot reg, which means a regular intent, and then the name of the intent, allows you to filter categories. So, what's all the intents to do with payslips, for example, and you type in payslip, because you've got payslip.reg. Show my payslip, it would show you all the intents to do with payslips. Pretty nice way of then dealing with your review, looking at intents. So this again is available in the doc. Everything's available off that bit.ly link that I showed earlier. Okay. I hope some more questions coming up, but so the next thing is we also recognize that most bots we see are very similar. Okay, there's not a huge lot of difference, whether it's ordering a pizza or checking a payslip or whatever. There's some very common things that every bot has to do. So at a very high level, the bot has to do things like deal with small talk. Okay, are you a bot? Help, get me out of here. Can I ask a question? Thanks, this isn't helpful. These kind of things, now you decide how far you go with small talk, but small talk's one thing. Your FAQ, because most bots at least will have an FAQ type of thing. Some sort of transaction, and again, we see a lot of use cases, especially in the CX world, as where's my order as well. There might be a search, because if you ask the bot a question that it doesn't know, well, rather than saying, I'm sorry, I don't understand, usually there's a fallback, which is to maybe search somewhere and try and find information and give a better answer. So you might have integration with something like Oracle Knowledge, for example. Now, it happens to be that these common requirements of small talk, FAQ, where's my order, a knowledge search, etc., is something that many people need. And we've created a CX template for that. So there's a digital assistant, and again, everything based off of our digital assistant documentation page, that if we go here to Oracle Skills, and then on the right hand side, we have the B2C or CX template, and there's a presentation how to use that as well. And I have probably worked on 50% of the CX use cases. Oh, sorry, the other thing I should also mention is agent handover, of course. Can I speak to a human? And we hand that off as well. Now, as I said, about 50% of those CX use cases I've seen, people have built from scratch, and it's taken them, I don't know, maybe 6 months, a year or so to get to a delivery point. With that CX template, the main thing you need to do is bring in your own FAQs, but you can follow the pattern. We've got the call to the check your order is probably some fine tuning, but this can accelerate your first running digital assistant within a matter of a week or so, versus what it might take us 4, 6, 8 weeks or so to do it from scratch yourself, including gathering utterances, those kind of things. So I would strongly recommend, if you're doing any project, start with the CX template. If there's any parts you don't need, like knowledge search, then just it's a separate skill. So you can just remove that skill as well. The other thing that's important in this CX template is there are common patterns resolving entities. One of the most common issues I see is if, for example, the bot says a question like, would you like to check your order status, yes or no? And I type in yes, please, and it fails. And the reason it fails is because most people have not realized that when they use a system list, it's looking for an exact match of the user input against what the label is. So it must be yes or it must be no. If you have an entity, use resolve entities with a variable that points to an entity variable, which is yes or no, then I can say, yes, I would like to do that, or yep, I would like to do that. And it would understand even if you've got other words around there or use different synonyms of the word yes, or no, in fact, as well. So there are common patterns that we ask people to try and implement. And again, it's covered in the documentation, but if you pick up the template, you will see a very common pattern for resolving entities and code that goes with that as well. And based on an entity value, you can maybe give different answers, and you look up different answers. What's my store opening time? Which store, Paris or New York? And based on that, you look up a different resource bundle as well. So you can even reduce the amount of code you have in the YAML by using lookups and resource bundles as well. So clever techniques. The other thing I'm going to do just for 5 minutes, very briefly, and apologies for those that have seen this, but I do want to make sure that people are aware. On the documentation page, I've shown this to many of you, hopefully, that we have this digital assistant, Artie. Now, I show this for a number of reasons. The first thing is Artie has actually been the catalyst for the CX template. So all the best practices in Artie are pretty much folded into that slimmed down CX template. So things like the entity resolution and the small talk, these kind of things as well. But if you have any questions to ask a digital assistant or about ODA, then you can ask them here. So what is a digital assistant? And a question like this, you can see how our auto disambiguation works. You get to choose. Do you want to know about the basics or exactly what is a digital assistant here? And again, there's components that we've put in here, that you can show, read more, read less. We have in-page links so that the digital assistant you can click on and it brings you to the right part of the page as well. I mentioned things like entity lookup. So if I say what built-in channels do you have, then notice RT reply, give me a typing indicator. That's a custom component we give you for having a typing indicator delay. And we see a list of channels. And a good practice here is that when you present a list of options to a user, always have an option which gets them out of where they currently are, in case the bot is taking them down a route that they don't want as well. So that's a good practice. Other things to show you, again, these are all features of the platform that we try to explain to people should use. If I say, how do I deploy my bot to Samsung or an iPad? Now, there's two interesting things that we can show here. Is the bot recognizes that Samsung and iPad are actually Android and iOS. So we've set up synonyms that it understands those. But also, I've essentially asked two questions. How do I deploy my bot to Samsung? How do I deploy it to iPad? Now, rather than the bot giving two answers, we can automatically say, well, look, don't mind, we can answer one at a time. And then this is all out of the box functionality, but it allows us to better deal with things like multiple questions. So in this case, I'll reply something like, it's the iPad, please. And it answers. So again, my point I made earlier that I don't have to click and exactly select exactly what's in the label. I've said it's the iPad, please, and it understands that as well. Other couple of things I'll show very briefly. If I say something like storage indicators, we know that the bots won't always get everything right. But here's an example where we've asked a question that the bot, and being very clear, I've not confidently recognized that question. Therefore, we've done some searches, and lo and behold, the search that we've gone is actually one which has brought back the right document there as well. Again, CX template is a great strategy that when your bot is answering questions, if you have some knowledge search or documentation or articles that you could search, then in your unresolved intent, before you go to the dreaded "I didn't understand you," you can try and get an answer from search, and that's pretty cool as well here. So the last thing I'll show you, can just be aware of features we want to make sure people are aware of. If I say, what is NLP? And I say, do you have any tutorials? I get an answer that shows me there's a bunch of tutorials. But if I ask, can I build a bot in Spanish? And then I answer the same question, you'll see we get a different answer. So we're showing our intelligence in terms of things like context. And we're actually working on a customer implementation at the moment where, you can ask, where's my nearest store to New York, and it'll tell you, but then you'll say, does it have a pharmacy? And we recognize that, well, we were talking about New York, so yes, we'll check the pharmacy in New York. So things like context, some of this stuff is out of the box in this example, others are a little bit more difficult, but again, we're covering these in all our best practices, and it's all about raising the bar, trying to make it much more of an engaging experience. Okay, so that's the CX template, and that's Artie. So pretty much, if you like what Artie does, you've got most of that code in the CX template. The last thing to kind of go on to is Center of Excellence health checks and review. Now, what I mean is that in my team, we've got 13 people in my team. We build documentation, certification. As I say, I've got guys like Frank Nymphius who are writing all our deep technical articles, and there's a team working on customer engagements. But one of the things that I've also got part of the team working on now is reviewing skills, our digital assistants. So we've been doing this for the past year or so with our own SaaS teams. And what we will do is we'll sit down with them. We take an hour to get a demo of what they're building, what their challenges are, what their questions are. And then we'll spend a week or so reviewing. And there's a number of key areas we look at. We look at conversation design. We look at intent design. We look at conversation flow and implementation. And we look at custom components and backend integration and entities and entity extraction. Again, following that same pattern from the design camp videos. And we'll go through, and with the best intentions of the world, we'll try to find the good things you're doing, but quite literally, most of the work is trying to find the ways we can make your bot more robust. So make the conversations more robust, the entities more robust, the backend integration more robust, the NLP more robust as well. And again, we're seeing common patterns, not using resolved entities, not training the model well enough, not having good testing strategies, but we'll try and find those for you. And we'll write up a report and go through with you and say, these are the areas where we recommend you could make improvements. So we're offering that for free for all our partners. Now, in some ways, I'm slightly hoping there'll be an avalanche of requests, and I know that there's at least one partner we've got queued up to do a review that we've had to delay for a few days because we've got another escalation to deal with. However, we are happy to take requests from yourself as partners that we will review the implementations that you're currently working on. Usually it's about a week or so turnaround, week or 10 days, depending on the number of things we have on. And obviously we can do a couple of these things in parallel. So ideally, we'd like to do these at a point before you go production and at a point that it gives time to implement our recommendations as well, because I would rather not potentially find a bunch of problems and then we know that you have to go live with those problems. So give us a little bit of time in your schedule that we could try and implement these and get the time for you to feedback and implement the fixes as well. Okay, well, I think that's everything. As I said, the bit.ly link, bit.ly/ODA doc is our one-stop shop for everything. And if you have any questions, you can drop an email to me. I'll just go back to that slide so you've got my email address here as well. I think that's my session. I don't know if there's any chats or questions come up yet. Martin or Jürgen, do you see any?
I've been following the Q&A. There are a couple that, well, we've answered all of them, but maybe we could just sort of cover them. Maybe you give an opinion. So Sharajesh, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, was asking about the ODA bootcamp that we did, if there would be another one in English. Jürgen was advertising the one in Spanish. So just to confirm to everybody that the English one happened, I think we did that beginning of the year, although time flies so fast. So that's because we've done that, and that's all recorded. That is available now on demand. So you can do that at your own pace and when it suits you. It's the same material done in English. It's 4 sessions that we did over 4 different days. You can do them back to back, binge watch them if you wish, or you can spread it out. It's up to you.
Okay. Yeah, and on that bit.ly.oda doc, all the current PowerPoints that we have ever created for any of our training are there as well, which covers a whole range of topics. We're also going to be bringing out new tutorials. So for example, the team are just about to publish a new tutorial on the ML entity. We're also working on samples and tutorials for the new dialogue or visual designer, dialogue 2.0, maybe you heard people talk about as well, which allows you to visually lay out what you would currently do in the YAML.
There's a question from Plamon. You might want to give some opinion on this, Grant. Is the NLP good enough to determine that a drink is similar to a beverage and classify the utterance correctly?
Oh man, that's a great question. I love this question.
I thought you might.
So I'm very excited about this. Thank you for asking. The NLP is awesome. And in fact, if you go to the design camp video we did on NLP utterances, I do a demo where I train the bot. I train a bot with 2 intents. It's order a taxi or order a pizza. And there's only about 18 utterances in each. But the pizza bot is only mentioning pizza. I want to order a pizza. Can you get me a pizza? I'd like delivery of a pizza for the family. And taxi is only taxi. If I ask a question like, can you get me a Hawaiian? Or can you get me a margarita? Or can you get me a calzone? It understands that as a pizza and of course not a taxi. If I say, can you get me a black cab, which is what we'd probably say in London, it understands that a taxi. Now, if I said something like, can you get me a trampoline? Of course, it won't resolve to that, even though both intents have got, can you get me a pizza or taxi? So it's kind of cool. The other story I'll tell you is that the customer we're working, doing some, a little proof of concept for this week. We had, do you have a pharmacy in store? And there was one for pharmacy, one for do you have an optician in store, and do you have a hearing test in store? And what we noticed is that we trained it only with words about, you know, can you get a hearing test? Have you an optician? Can I buy glasses? Can I get my sight tested, etc. But if I ask the question like, I've got tinnitus, can I get a test? Or tinnitus, which is a hearing problem, it resolved to the intent for, have you got an audiology department? And equally, if I said a question like, I've got glaucoma, so it recognized actually that tinnitus or glaucoma were conditions related to ears and eyes, even though it had never been trained. We were only trained it with basic terms about, you know, eye tests and hearing tests. So going back to your original question, will it understand the difference between beverage and drink? Absolutely. If you train it with not just the word drink, but of course other, you know, drink, can you get me a Coke? Can you get me a cup of tea? Then it will recognize that, oh, drink, yes, you mean that. And it will pretty much, I'm guaranteed, understand those other ways that we might express a drink, as in, you know, beverage or a tipple or, you know, a long cool one, whatever it might be. So yeah, thank you for asking that. It's really, yes, the NLP is that good. And I've also posted an article on LinkedIn, if anyone's connected to me on LinkedIn. It's one of the articles where I talk about misspellings, and it's amazing how well the bot deals with misspellings if it's a well-trained model. So I would type in some phrases where there was literally no words spelt correctly, and it would find the right intent. Not every time, but it was pretty damn good at spelling.
So we've had a couple of questions come in live while you were answering. So let's move over to those. From Rajesh, first of all, how is the ODA different in SaaS?
Physically, it's exactly the same. ODA is the same product, whether you're using it within SaaS or your own platform development. There's differences in pricing, which Martin can talk about, but there are no differences technically.
Okay, thank you. And then Marcus asked, the speech-to-text feature, is it released in this new version?
It's speech-to-text has been out for a number of months, and if I can quickly share my screen again, if I go back to Artie, and you won't see this or you won't hear this because I haven't set up, my microphone won't pick up on Zoom, but if I'm going to speak to Artie and say, you know, can you tell me what is an entity?
Just to prove it even understand Scottish.
Exactly. And actually, and you make a good point. If I say, let me try something else. I want to build a bot in Spanish. Now, I say this one because up to a couple of months ago, if I put in that sentence, it would often come up as I want to build a boat, B-O-A-T, in Spanish, because I think of my accent. So one of the things, because of course the speech to text didn't particularly know that this was about boats or sailing or bots and digital assistants. So, you know, it wasn't quite sure. Maybe, maybe you are building ships in Spanish, I don't know. So what we did, and as another feature we have, is you can actually train the speech to text models, not the NLP models, the speech to text models, to understand the words that are in your domain. And so the speech to text model recognizes that, Artie is all about chat bots and not about ships and boats. Therefore, it's most likely that Grant is talking about bots and not boats. So yes. In terms of new features on text to speech, speech to text, I should say, sorry. There is, I think we're releasing things like different dialects and things. So there's, we're now, like, for example, trained on English with Indian accent, those kind of things as well. So that gives us, better resolution on different accents.
Super. One from here from Ferris. And I guess we need to just make sure we are understanding how we answer this one. Can we run analysis, dashboards, infolettes, or BI reports by ODA? Now, clearly we have insights inside ODA to show how the bot's being used, but I think this question is actually asking about using ODA to deliver analysis itself to the end users.
Yeah, there could be three ways we could answer that. So yes, we have insights so that you can understand how the digital assistant has been being used. Yes, you can, and in fact, I think we had a partner, didn't we, Martin, that did a demo of integrating with Analytics Cloud, so that if you asked a particular question, it would embed an image that represented the question you'd asked. There's also a third, and it's something we've actually been using in my team as a bit of a research project. We use Oracle Analytics Cloud to give us a dashboard about Artie. So we will take all our conversation logs, put them into from Artie, put them into Oracle Analytics Cloud, and we can look and get some different ideas of things like sentiment, for example. It also gives us other information on, popular intents or types of conversation and things like this as well. So we have been using that just as a bit of a what if project as well. So I think hopefully, Ferris, that covers your question. It's probably yes, whatever you mean.
Super. This is, I think, a very short question, but a very long answer from Shajesh. How to integrate custom bots in Oracle SAS? I guess, where do we get started there?
Yeah. I mean, we could mean that you're just calling a SAS backend from your own bots. Well, that's any REST API you can call, that would be fine. But it might be that you've already got a SAS skill and you want to integrate your own functionality into that. Well, again, that's all possible. You can extend the SAS skills, or you can add in your own skills into a digital assistant, a SAS digital assistant as well. So anything you want to add, Martin? But there's a couple of
well, I think obviously all the material that you've been talking about so far, those are essential skills. If you're building custom skills for SAS, or you're building custom skills for any other backend, well, we still make sure you understand how the NLP engine works, what the right approach is to designing your model, having a good conversation design. All those things still apply. And then I think you need to look at how the digital assistant does routing, because if you're going to create a custom skill next to your SAS skill, then you want to understand how the digital assistant will determine whether to route the user's request to your custom skill or to the pre-built HCM skills, for example. But yeah, everything is in the material that Grant just showed you. I'm not showing any further questions, Jürgen.
Yeah, let me wrap up and then we can answer some more questions if we get them. So if you're not yet a member in the community, please make sure that you register now. At the Oracle website, you can find more information about the chatbots. The on-demand training is available, and we will do a live training in Spanish. Like Grant showed you, make use of the documentation, where you can also use Arti, our bot, who teach you more about our digital assistant platform. We highly recommend to take a look at the blueprint, which is a best practice document, like Grant said, that was built based on many bot reviews. And please become a certified expert. That's really key for you to get started and to understand our best practices and to also achieve a personal certification. For more information on the communities, we posted all the videos on our Oracle Video Hub platform. And make use of the Slack channel, which we support from product management, where you can ask your questions, you get the latest announcements, and visit the ODA website. So at the Oracle Digital Assistant developer page, you find all the links from today's webcast, and you find already today's presentation. Martin, do we have any further questions?
Well, one for you, actually. Is the certification and training completely free?
Yes, it is. So both the solution engineer is free of charge, and also the implementation, training and certification is free of charge until December 31st. So it's time to do it now.
Rajesh has put in a question about the URL giving an error, but I think maybe he's got the wrong URL. I'm sure you'll be sending out the URL with the slides afterwards, yeah?
Yeah, and if you're not yet a member in the partner community, you cannot access the partner community website. So please register for the community, and within a week, you get access to the website. So thank you very much for today's webcast. Thank you for attending. Thank you to all the speakers. If you would like to reach out to Martin, Grant, or myself, please send us an email. And we are happy also to work with you to review your bots. So please keep it as an active communication. Thanks to the speaker teams. Please complete the online survey that you will receive at the end of the webcast. It will pop up. And our next community webcast will take place November 30th. And we scheduled a webcast about hospitality integration. Thank you very much for attending, and hope to see you at our next webcast.